Within the pages of the Bible, medieval Europeans found a narrative that would be tragically misinterpreted and manipulated to serve their own ends. The story of Noah's curse upon his son, Ham. Found in the book of Genesis, this tale describes Noah cursing Ham's son Canaan after Ham disrespects his father. While the biblical text itself makes no mention of skin color, later interpretations, fueled by prejudice and a desire for justification, would twist this story into a weapon used to legitimize the enslavement and subjugation of African peoples. European scholars eager to find religious backing for their burgeoning slave trade seized upon the curse of Ham, claiming that black Africans were descendants of Ham and therefore destined for servitude. This interpretation, wholly inaccurate and driven by existing racial biases, gained widespread acceptance, becoming a cornerstone of pro-slavery arguments. The fact that the Bible, the ultimate source of moral authority, seemingly endorsed this view lent it a dangerous legitimacy. The ramifications of this misinterpretation were profound and far-reaching. It provided a veneer of religious sanction to the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade. Slave owners could claim to be carrying out God's will, using the curse of Ham to soothe their consciences and silence any objections to their brutal practices. This potent combination of religious authority and racial prejudice proved a toxic brew, poisoning European perceptions of Africans for centuries to come. White as snow, purity and the divine. In stark contrast to the negative connotations of blackness, white stood as the ultimate symbol of purity, goodness, and divine favor in the medieval Christian world. From the pristine robes of saints to the radiant light emanating from heaven, white represented all that was sacred, virtuous, and aspirational. This association permeated every aspect of religious life, shaping art, architecture, and even everyday practices. The very act of baptism, the sacrament through which one entered the Christian faith, involved being washed clean of sin in the purifying waters, often symbolized by the color white. White garments, known as christening gowns, were worn by those being baptized, signifying their spiritual rebirth and newfound innocence. This association of white with spiritual cleansing further reinforced its connection to righteousness and divine grace. The Virgin Mary, the most revered figure in the Catholic faith, was almost always depicted draped in white, a symbol of her purity, virginity, and closeness to God. Angels, those messengers of the divine, were similarly depicted with white wings, their presence signifying heaven's favor and protection. This consistent association of white with the divine and the holy cemented its place as the color of moral and spiritual perfection in the medieval mind. Symbols in stone and scripture, reinforcing the divide. The stark contrast between black and white, already deeply ingrained in the medieval mindset, found further reinforcement in the very fabric of religious life. Cathedrals, those towering monuments to faith, were often built with pale stone, their soaring arches and intricate carvings gleaming white against the backdrop of the sky. Inside, stained glass windows, bursting with color, frequently depicted biblical scenes using a limited palette of hues, with white again taking center stage as a symbol of holiness. The pages of illuminated manuscripts, painstakingly copied by hand in monasteries, further reinforced this visual dichotomy. Angels and saints adorned in white robes stood in stark contrast to the dark, menacing figures representing devils and the forces of evil. These images, imbued with religious significance, were not mere decoration but powerful tools for shaping belief and reinforcing the moral order of the universe as medieval Europeans understood it. Through this constant visual reinforcement, the symbolic divide between black and white became deeply embedded in the medieval consciousness. The association of whiteness with purity, divinity, and righteousness stood in stark contrast to the negative connotations of blackness, which evoked sin, darkness, and spiritual corruption. These deeply ingrained associations, though initially unrelated to race, would have profound consequences when Europeans began to encounter people whose skin color differed from their own.